In enterprise marketing, UI boundaries are completely rigid. If an email template dictates 50 characters for a headline, it expects exactly 50 characters. A single character over that limit causes a fatal truncation. The email renders incorrectly, the layout breaks, and an automated campaign reaching millions of customers is ruined. Fixing this seems straightforward. Tell the AI to count the letters. But large language models lack native awareness of characters or letters. Models process language through tokenization, chopping words into irregular, uneven segments. A model evaluating this text doesn't see characters, it sees a probabilistic sequence of tokens. Asking it to hit an absolute character limit is like trying to measure volume with a ruler. To force probabilistic models into strict deterministic boundaries, we have to build an escalating architecture of prompt constraints. By examining the prompt.py file for the AI creative copy agent, we can map out exactly how these layers of enforcement, casing logic, and brand constraints are engineered. Achieving character-perfect outputs in production is an optimization problem. It requires coding multivariable, rigid constraints into a system designed for probabilistic generation. A simple directive like maximum length fails under edge case stress. Reliable enforcement requires layering multiple constraint techniques to box the model in. This dark mode code environment shows the first layer of defense. We set an absolute ceiling using the explicit command, strictly less than 50 characters. Notice the modifier, including spaces. This explicitly removes ambiguity regarding whitespace tokenization, closing a common loophole. But strict commands still occasionally fail. The ultimate safety net is a prompt-level self-correction loop. We instruct the model to evaluate its own output length before finalizing the response. If the text exceeds the count, it is explicitly told to regenerate. We rely on the model to edit its own overflows rather than using a Python script to hard truncate strings post-generation. Hard truncation slices words in half. Semantic regeneration preserves meaning while cutting length. This side-by-side technical layout demonstrates a practical character-saving technique fed to the AI. Replacing the word "and" with an ampersand shrinks style and performance from 21 characters down to 19. Teaching the model these substitution rules ensures it can satisfy hard UI constraints without sacrificing the core marketing message. Length limits are only half the requirement. Automated marketing relies heavily on strict visual consistency, requiring rigid casing rules. This three-tier data flow routes input text into distinct pipelines: headline case, sentence case, and all caps. We also apply explicit punctuation parameters across these tiers. Periods are suppressed in headlines and CTAs, but are injected into subheaders for readability. We handle dates with similar rigidity. The prompt standardizes launch dates to a month, day, and time format, dropping the year entirely to eliminate variable lengths and standardized time zones. Global logic, however, often collides with brand-specific overrides. The Kids Foot Locker brand has a localized style guide that requires the acronym KFL to be strictly lowercase. The system is programmed to intercept this specific string and force it to lowercase, even when it sits inside an all-caps element. Robust prompt schemas isolate these micro-brand deviations programmatically so they execute perfectly without breaking the parent casing logic. Nowhere is brand logic more complex than in product naming taxonomies. As this photograph of Michael Jordan represents, the brand carries massive weight, and its trademark requirements dictate a very specific naming order. The brand requires the exact sequence: brand, sub-brand, number, and nickname. A mandatory string like Jordan Retro 1 Baroque Brown consumes 32 characters immediately. In a UI zone capped at 50 characters, that leaves almost no room to add an action verb or descriptive copy. To solve this, we engineer deterministic fallback logic. As the text block presses against the hard 50-character ceiling, the model detaches the primary brand name, Jordan. It then cleanly routes downward and locks into a secondary subheadline container. Advanced prompt engineering builds intelligent pressure relief valves for text, anticipating exactly how these rigid constraints will inevitably clash in a live production environment. The ultimate crucible for this system is the SMS channel, which operates under the tightest constraints in the codebase. This technical breakdown of an SMS JSON payload highlights the brutal restrictions: a hard 80-character maximum, total prohibition of emojis, and a strict exclusion rule for hyphens. The creative brief demands a tone that is energetic and engaging. An LLM can only satisfy these intersecting creative and technical constraints because of the foundational logic established upstream. The system succeeds by never relying on standard length requests. It builds layered limit enforcement, explicitly defining how to count spaces. It prioritizes prompt-level self-correction and semantic regeneration over brute force Python truncation. And it explicitly defines edge case formatting overrides and fallback logic to protect strict brand taxonomies. Forcing a large language model to count characters is difficult, but it is a strict architectural requirement for deploying AI reliably in deterministic enterprise environments.